So, based on my reading, I feel like I have a pretty good sense of how to spot a psychopath. Clue number one, they are named Gretchen. Clue number two, they consult for the police force. And clue number three, they were found as a child covered in blood standing over the body of their dead parents but didn't actually do it. That is at least the case in A Familiar Sight by Brianna Labuskis, a 2021 crime novel that I really enjoyed. This copy of it may look pretty tattered, and that's because it's actually Kill Your Brother by Jack Heath. But I read the ebook of this and also the audiobook, so this is a purely visual aid. Let me tell you a little bit about A Familiar Sight. So basically, Dr. Gretchen White is a psychopath, but a non-violent one, or so she claims, who consults for the Boston Police Department, and she was a murder suspect when she was a child. So as you can imagine, when a new girl turns up, found with a bloody knife after the suspicious death of her mother, you can imagine that Dr. Gretchen White would have some sympathy for the girl and get involved. But she doesn't, because psychopaths don't work that way. They don't actually have sympathy or empathy. So Gretchen isn't involved at all, except that her friend Lena is the child's lawyer. And then the lawyer turns up under suspicious circumstances, but turns up dead, under suspicious circumstances, but uses kind of her last breath to go like, by the way, Viola is innocent. And Dr. Gretchen White finds herself kind of investigating the case, which has yet to go to trial. So this is a cool dual perspective sort of book where half of it is from the perspective of Dr. Gretchen White, the psychopath. The other half is from the perspective of Reed Kent, the father of the psychopath girl who supposedly murdered the mother, which was Reed Kent's wife. Are you following all this so far? And it jumps back and forth not only between perspectives, but it jumps back and forth in time. Like Gretchen's stuff is mostly after the murder, Reed Kent's stuff is mostly before the murder. And this is a neat trick because one of the things that's actually really difficult to pull off about back and forth alternating perspectives, male and female, it's often it's a common device used in romance fiction in particular, but it works quite well in crime as well. But the thing that makes it so difficult is that often you end up reiterating the same information because both characters figure out the same things, and that makes it kind of repetitive and boring. Having half of it come before the murder and the other half come after is a really clever way of making sure that nothing gets repeated or lost. So I applaud Brianna Labuskis for that decision. It feels like a really well-researched novel as well. Despite what I said earlier, I'm not actually an expert in psychopaths or the Boston Police Department or Boston anything or medical anything, but this all felt very authentic to me. I do have... I'm actually a bit bored of psychopaths now. I mean, in fiction. Well, also in real life. Yeah, boring might not be the word I'd use, but the point is, the most interesting thing for me in a crime book is the motive. Like, why did the killer commit the murder? And when the killer is a psychopath, the answer to that is, no reason, they're a psychopath, which isn't a very interesting motive. But this book sidesteps that problem as well, because of the two psychopaths in the book, you have Gretchen White, the doctor, who is actually innocent, and the little girl, Viola, who is a psychopath but maybe is innocent too. So that she's a psychopath motive is a useful decoy rather than a sort of hand-washing of any of the messy complexities of humanity type thing, if that makes any sense. So that was pretty cool. There were a couple of things I didn't like. One was that the conversations in the book, the dialogue reads as very authentic, but in between each line of dialogue, there's 2 or sometimes 3 paragraphs of body language and exposition and inner monologue and motivation, and that means that the rhythm of the conversation is completely lost. There's no snappy back and forth. By the time one character replies to a question, the reader has almost always forgotten what the question was because it happened several paragraphs ago. So that took me a little bit of getting used to. And the other thing was that this is a particular pet hate of mine, but I don't like endings where, I'm not going to spoil the ending, but I will say that there is a character who dies and it felt like they died for the author's convenience rather than for the reader's enjoyment. And that's a bit of a bugbear of mine, particularly when the death is a suicide. It feels like I've read a lot of books where the author went, I'm not really sure what to do with this character at the end of the story, and then the character goes, goodbye cruel world, blam, and then it's over. And that always leaves a poor taste in my mouth. But in this instance, the ending overall was good. That was just one little part of it that made me a bit uncomfortable. But no, not so uncomfortable that I wouldn't read more books in this series or more books by Brianna Labuscas. I actually thought this was pretty impressive. So well done. Would recommend. Thank you very much to Tom Jr., my YouTube watcher person who actually requested me to review that book. If you would like me to read something else, then be the first one to post in the comments and tell me if you'd like me to review Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson, which is a book about a girl, a young woman who ends up nannying two children who burst into flames. It sounds like a joke, but it's not a comedy. Well, anyway, it's an interesting, weird book, and I'd love to tell you about it. But I'd also love to tell you about Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason, which is about a young woman who has problems, largely problems that she caused, or did she? And it's about mental illness, but it's also about relationships and family. And man, I'm not making this sound very interesting, but it was actually a genuinely interesting book. So if you be the first person to post in the comments whether you want me to read Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson or Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason, and I will talk about them next time. Okay, that's the video. My name is Jack Heath. I'm the author of Chill Your Brother. Wow, that sounds like such a relaxing book. Chill Your Brother. No, this is Kill Your Brother. It's anything but relaxing. Hope you like that too. I gotta go. Bye.